For this next item, I am really excited to introduce our Student Equity Council, including their group sponsor, CPNI, or Cultural Proficiency and Inclusiveness Specialist, Bavu Blakes, and Executive Director of our Social Emotional Learning, Dr. Jane Ross. The Student Equity Council started in December of 2020 as part of a St. David's Foundation grant through our Cultural Proficiency and Inclusiveness team. The council is composed of up to 4 students from each high school, aiming to increase impactful student agency in AISD. The students have learned and practiced liberatory design mindsets with Design School X, have conducted empathy interviews at their home campuses, and co-designed and co-hosted the last 3 of their 5 district-wide convenings. The students co-designed this presentation with little guidance from their sponsors and presented to our executive leadership team on May 10th. We are now excited to have them share the presentation with the board. Dr. Ross, can you please introduce our presenters?
It is my honor to introduce our presenters. Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent. We have presenting Zarka Fatima, who's going to be sharing her screen and leading and guiding the presenter. Her fellow students call her the Glue. That's her nickname. So I'd like you to meet the Glue in AISD. I'd like to introduce Nelly Rebolar, who's going to be joining her as well. Thank you and welcome. And Felix Luna. Do we have other students here? I want to make sure that I don't miss anyone. Wonderful. And I just have to give an extra special shout out to Babu Blakes, their wonderful sponsor who goes above and beyond to honor and listen to student voice and everything that he does. And I will now turn it over to the real voice, Zarka Fatima. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'd just like to say that we have one more student with us, and his name is Noah Williams. So he is from LBJ High School as well, so he will also be presenting.
Oh my goodness, and that is Dr. Twyla Williams' son. Hi, Noah. I didn't see your video on. My apologies, my public apologies. I know Noah very well. Thank you, Zarka, and thank you for joining us, Noah.
And I will now be sharing our screen. And we'll be starting off with Nelly.
Hi, good afternoon. I do want to begin by thanking y'all for being here today and giving us an opportunity to share just this wonderful group of students' ideas and hopes for AISD. We're going to all introduce ourselves, our name, grade, and what school we attend. So my name is Nelly Rebollar. I will be senior next fall at the Ann Orchard School for Young Women Leaders.
I am Zarka Fatima, and I am currently in 10th grade, and I will be a junior next year, and I attend Navarro High School. Next we have Felix.
Hi, my name is Felix Luna, and I'll be a senior next year in 12th grade or next fall, and I go to East Side Memorial High School. Next we have William.
My name is Noah Williams. I am a rising junior at the great LBJ High School.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And we're going to just share with you tonight some of our action plan on spreading culture, diversity, and equity throughout AISD based on the research and empathy interviews that we have done throughout the last couple of months. We do ask that you hold questions after our presentation, but overall, we're really excited to talk to you today, and we hope this is the beginning of the relationship between the school board and our Student Equity Council. And I'll now pass it on to our next presenter.
And now it's on to Noah.
Thank you. The Student Equity Council is primarily a group of students and sponsors that meet together to advocate for equity through empathizing with each other and being inclusive, open-minded about any discussions concerning equity across the district. We want to create solutions collectively, as well as use our diversity and passion as our strength. All high schools in the district are invited, all of you. And we have 12 high schools that are active participants. This screenshot is only one out of the 4 panels of our meetings. We average around 30 plus students per session and 60 plus including school sponsors. We have met 5 times virtually through Zoom using COVID-19 and distance learning as an advantage, while we explore design thinking through conducting empathy interviews and implementing liberatory designs mindsets. Students also have the ability to co-design and co-host sessions to create a student-driven agenda. Through our interviews, we hope to accomplish the goal of using student voice to influence our perspectives as we learn about these diverse experiences across the district. Before we move on, we would like to acknowledge our sponsors and our funding from St. David's Foundation and recognize the work of Bavu Blakes and everybody else who pitches in just to help us. Thank you. Now, here are our responses that members of SEC have complied. Now we'll be moving on to Zarka. Thank you.
So, Student Equity Council leaders each possess unique characteristics, but generally we are leaders for equity in AISD, creating conversation and conducting the necessary action steps in regards to improving equity. Our leaders have used a variety of tools, including interviews and presentations, to create a safe, brave, and welcoming environment led by the students themselves. There are 4 key skills seen in all of our leaders: the ability to feel, think, say, and do. The ability to feel helps us experience complex emotions and resonate with students speaking up about their equity concerns. The ability to think helps us evaluate the situation and ideate solutions for students who offer their own perspectives. The ability to say helps us understand when to talk versus when to listen, as we use the strategy of active listening as we bravely speak our truths. The ability to do helps us stay active and attentive and build a strong foundation based on trust and bonding with others to create a community of support and respect. Please take a moment to look over the responses from all 12 represented schools in the Student Equity Council. Now, over to Nellie.
Thank you, Zarka. And while you guys take a moment to look over some of those responses, some of us will be sharing our personal experience, our interviews experience with inequity in AISD. I will start off that in my school personally, a lot of the students feel as though there are tiny microaggressions in terms of the type of language they use towards students, and that can be extremely damaging to one's perception of themselves and an entire community. And we'll move on to Zarka.
So for me, I went to an advanced middle school and excelled at my classes. So when I went to my zoned high school, I expected the same resources, but I was met with no college prep and not even a simple SAT prep class. Next, we have Noah.
The school I attend, I have witnessed physical altercations that had more administrative more administrative support, and then too much of like law authority support. Basically, what I'm trying to say is there have been way too many police officers just for a physical altercation that has no weapons involved, that the principal can separate itself. So thank you. Now we have Felix.
In my experience, I feel I have to worry about my school being closed down because of being a school of minority and smaller population. Having a new school is not going to fix our problems. Back to Nelly.
Thank you guys for sharing. And I hope that you have read a lot of the sticky notes that our members have placed, because they do mean a lot to us and they are important to equity and social diversity in AISD. And we'll move on to the next slide.
Here are perspectives of different issues we've noticed across the district. As students, we face similar problems at district levels, such as interpersonal, internalized, and institutional. For example, interpersonally, school culture creates a stigma of failure. If students do not proceed to attend college indirectly, creating pressure for students to foster a fake persona, which leads to creating a sense of invisibility among our school environment. We ask you to listen to our message sincerely because on the internalized level, a student voice is often disregarded. Student experience on the institutional levels are decisions that are made that affect students and their day-to-day lives seem to be made from a distance without taking the student experience into account and do not take human life experience into account. Some might be campus administrative wide. A lot feels like decisions are made because of bureaucratic reasons that disregard the personal and human. The central office of AISD made for administrative reasons, not for human or personal reasons. Our concerns aren't acknowledged by the higher levels in the district. We need to establish a direct line of communication for students to meet with the board or district members who are willing to advocate for students and work collaboratively, such as allowing students to co-sign solutions to problems that we are closest to, such as the way Austin has the city council where they have a system where they can hear what people in Austin are going through and help change to make a better place for all of us. If implemented, the system can allow the development of student voice and leadership at the higher levels that can influence our school society and culture. You now have time to look at the information on the slide. Afterwards, we will begin answering questions. Thank you.
So that is the wrap up of our presentation. We will now be answering any questions that anyone would like to ask us.
Thank you all very much. Trustee Anderson?
The courage it must took to tell us that. I want to thank each and every one of y'all. Like, y'all are the reason I'm here, not adults for y'all. Don't ever forget that. But what is an empathy interview? What does that look like?
An empathy interview is generally an interview that is associated by different characteristics that we use to resonate with our interviewees before we actually start to ask them questions. So in an empathy interview, instead of just getting into the interview and asking questions, we take time to get to know our interviewee and find out their perspective of how they've experienced inequity in their school or district or their experience as well. So, for example, when I interviewed one of the students at my school, I had to understand that they were actually a refugee from another country, and they came here about 2 years ago, and they were expressing the concern of not being able to speak English and having to communicate between their parents and school teachers about how they wanted to attend school at my high school.
Thank you.
Trustee Foster?
So first of all, Zarka and Felix and Nellie and Noel, thank you for the presentation, and also thank you for the work you've been doing all this year. And it's nice to see Mr. Blake's, my favorite hip hop educator, and his influence on your work as well. So I think it was Noah that mentioned that you all were able to take advantage of the technology opportunities afforded by COVID and this pandemic. So you found a way to take advantage of this. And one of the things I've noticed, or from what your presentation, you said that you all shared some sentiments. You found commonalities across the schools. And if we didn't have COVID, it might have been harder to get together. So I'm just curious, and I'm kind of putting you all on the spot, if any of you all have thoughts about how you can or will continue next year. Should you keep using Zoom? Should you be trying to meet in person somewhere? Because I'm getting a hint that we can learn a lot from you all, especially when you all are able to talk to each other across schools. So any thoughts on meeting next year? And I could throw it to Zarka or Felix or whoever wants to answer.
All four of us have talked about this. Actually, the whole student equity family has talked about this. And the reason I say student equity family is because I personally feel like all of us are family. From the first day to now, we're tight. We have each other's backs no matter what. And I want to say that I personally feel like all of them I'm just a phone call away. So if any kind of thing, all it takes is time. And, I personally see this happening, as long as it needs to, which is probably going to be forever, because everybody needs change. So thank you.
I definitely second that. In terms of how we will format it next year, I think that if there's a lot of people present and one place is not enough for people to come together and feel safe and also express their concerns, Zoom would probably be an easier and more effective method. However, if everyone is comfortable and we can make it work to be in person, then I think that there's no problem in switching to a more in-person format.
Well, thank you for your answers, and please count me and I'm sure all the trustees as a resource as you all move forward, because we do need to hear from you if we're going to get issues of equity right. So thank you again.
Thank you, Trustee Foster, Trustee Zapata, and then Trustee Boswell. Oh, and then Trustee Singh, sorry.
Thank you, students, for your amazing work. And you are the ones that can drive our agenda. Our work is to measure student outcomes, what you all are learning at your schools and what every student is, what are those barriers to their learning. So I really, one of the things you mentioned on here was that you want to make sure that there's direct communication to the board. And we need you. We need you to help us to learn what is it that the students' challenges are, so that we can ensure that everyone is having a great education experience and opportunities in every campus of AISD.
And we'd actually also like to thank you as well for taking the time to listen to our concerns, and not just our concerns, but all the effort that our group has put forward. And through the support of Babu and David and all of our sponsors, we'd also like to thank them. And speaking of Babu, it seems like he also has a few sentences to say. So we'll move over to him.
Yeah, I just wanted to celebrate you a little more and make it clear that the only reason I left my humanities classroom, the only reason I joined AustinISD in the first place, was to help leaders who support and sustain the work of moving from the language of educational equity to the labor of educational equity. So nobody has to help me remember on April 22nd, when Dr. Elizalde said that AustinISD public schools recommit to ensuring that equity and racial justice serve as our North Star. So I just want to make the final point that the Student Equity Council, and specifically the students who are courageously presenting to you tonight, are indeed the light of our North Star.
Thank you, Trustee Boswell.
Thank you all for being here tonight, each of the four of you, and please share our thanks with the rest of your family. I love that you choose that word. So please share our thanks. I have two related questions. I think the board often is doing work for students, but not often enough doing work with students. And I have two questions. How can the board support the work that you're doing? And then the second, I would love to know your ideas for how you can support our work for really holding us accountable for listening to student voice and for helping us get better at listening to student voice. And I would love your thoughts about both of those things, if you have any. Thank you.
A really great question, I think, to place on us. I think a lot of the time when adults, especially in your school or in the school board, they ask student opinion and they ask what we need and what we would like to see, but it kind of just stays as words rather than actions. So if we ask for something, or if we feel like this is a problem, we would like recognition that yes, this is obviously an issue, and then hopefully have some action in that issue rather than just saying, yeah, we understand, because I like they say, actions speak louder than words. And if you would like suggestions on how those actions what those actions would look like, go ahead and ask us as well, because I'm sure we've thought a lot about them as well.
Yeah, I would welcome that, and I hope this is the first of many, many interactions and conversations about that. So yes, please.
Adding on top of what Nelly said, honestly, just being there, just knowing that y'all are there, to support us, through everything, keeping it a stack. I mean, keeping it honest with us the whole time, and so that's really all I ask for, and all we ask for.
And I do believe that as well. And one thing that we might want to start off with would be just active listening and taking our concerns into consideration, and not just understanding our situation, but putting towards action and a plan to accomplish and ideate solutions to where we can overcome that barrier. Especially with, I know, schools getting renamed and different population demographics in different schools. Different schools have different resources, which I mentioned about my experience. And I certainly think that that's a really big inequity issue that has not been addressed yet.
Thank you all.
Trustee Singh and then Trustee Liu.
Y'all, I am blown away. This is amazing. I'm so energized by your honesty and your desire to improve your schools. So thank you for that. I'm looking at the slide that says, what are we hearing from students? And there's a couple things that kind of popped out to me. One was this potential solution of co-designing with students. We are closest to the problems you're trying to solve. Thank you for that. And I would love for us to maybe think about just as a board, how can we do this? I think our district does a lot of community engagement, Zoom sessions and this and that. I would love to see one or two a year that was geared for students. Because they are the ones. You're right. You are closest to the problems we're trying to solve, and I think that a lot of us would love to hear that, hear your thoughts on how we run the district, where we're putting our money. Just what are the things that you're seeing in your school that maybe we might not be hearing about. Love it. There's also another question I have, just kind of a fun one, which is, y'all are so articulate, and how have you changed? Like, how has just your participation in this program impacted you? If just one or two people want to share.
Well, I could obviously start us off. I think one of the main ways that this program has changed me is saying that when I first joined Student Equity Council, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I was kind of iffy about it. And one of the main concerns that I had was, how would we be able to take in everyone's perspective? Because I'm sure there would be like many students, and if each person has a different perspective and a different problem and issue they want to solve, how could we tackle all of them? And through liberatory design mindsets and design thinking, and interviewing through our interviewees and students, I realized that a lot of us share common issues. And even though some of our issues may be specifically geared towards a certain group or are diverse in a specific way, there's solutions that we can do that can impact more than just one of those groups. And like using these methods that we've learned kind of creates a path and motivation for our students to continue and realize, like, maybe not all hope is gone, at least not yet.
Thank you.
Trustee Lou.
Completely agree with everything Zarka just said. Really, just it's a process, you know. Me personally, I can't speak for everybody else, but I see y'all working. You know, I see the long hours and everything y'all do for us. You know, everything. You know, all the long hours and the hard work in the early mornings. I see it all. You know, and I really appreciate it. So you know, my whole thing is just trusting the process. You know, I know that y'all have our best interest at heart. So you know, that's all I can ask for. Thank y'all.
Trustee Lou.
So I think we cannot thank y'all enough. And of course, not just the four of y'all that are able to present to us, but as y'all mentioned, the Student Equity Council family. So please send our appreciation to your fellow scholars. And I have a couple of questions. The first one would be, y'all mentioned liberatory designs and the methods that y'all used from that training, or the methods that you learned from that training. So can you give us an example of how y'all are applying what you learned from liberatory design in other areas, not just SEC?
Well, for me, I would say that I'm applying liberatory design mindsets not just in SEC, but also in my day-to-day activities, because the design thinking method and the liberatory design mindset is in the name a mindset. So it changed the way how you think about things and how you analyze and use your critical thinking. So, for example, I know I had finals coming up, and for one of my classes, I had a final project. And so what I would usually do is I would dive into it and I would think, like, okay, so I'll get done with the easier parts first, and then I'll finish the harder parts later, and then turn it in as a whole. But through liberatory design mindset, I kind of restructured that. So instead of diving into it and thinking like, okay, so I'll do what I have first and then go get to the harder parts, I thought about how I could not just organize my project in a way where I can get it done efficiently and in the time that I had, but also where I had time left to ask for feedback and recommendations from my teachers to see like, hey, is there something specific that you think that I'm lacking, or something specific that I should add in? And having it that way made it a lot easier, especially for the stress for me, because I had a plan and I had an action. So I was like, okay, so if I do this part and this part, then I know that I can finish this part, because this part includes part of the hard steps, and this one includes like 1/3 of it. And although this one includes 2/3, it's easier because I know I'll be in class with my teacher and it'll be easier for me. So that's how I've personally used it.
Thank you for that example. Go ahead, Noah.
Just to add on to what Zarka said, but kind of branch off just a little bit. When I think about liberatory design, you know, kind of brings back home to sports. You know, sports in schools specifically. I feel like, you know, me as a student athlete should be held to a higher standard, you know, with great expectations of not only winning championships, but getting academic accolades, you know, and accolades on and off the field. And so I personally feel like, you know, that's a huge thing for me, just, you know, succeeding, you know, both ways. So thank you.
Thank you. And then for anyone from the group, what do y'all envision for post-grant sustainability? I'm a big geek for sustainability. It's awesome to have pilots and testing and, you know, do innovative things when we have special funding. But how do we envision sustaining this past the grant?
Well, one of the plans of action that we originally had thought of was keeping it in a way where we would have a group of students meet with their district member, district trustee. For example, for my school, it's, I believe, Kevin Foster. And so there would be a group of students from each high school that would meet with Kevin Foster. and they would talk to him about their equity concerns by talking to their specific school. So they try to include as much diversity as they can. And that way we can meet up with all the trustees and all the groups and try to connect and ideate solutions that could help the whole district and not just a specific area.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody else wanted to chime in. Bavu, did you have anything on that particular question?
I think that getting liberatory design, excuse me, let me turn my camera on. I think that getting the students attuned to liberatory design was key. We do have another year of funding, but for example, Zarka is a sophomore. So imagine what Zarka's capacity is going to be when she's a senior. So we're able to have people who come back. The students have already begun to co-design their future and what they want it to look like. OID is an amazing department. Austin Ed Fund is amazing. So we would like to see the students and Student Equity Council be eligible to apply for their own grants. The students will also be expanding to campus-based work next year. So it's really a matter of embedding these actions within our district to the point that we really don't have to pay for anything. We just have to uphold the work. There's a lot of parts of our culture and climate within the school district on a campus or a district level that actually don't cost anything, and yet they're so pervasive and so persistent. So again, if this is the light of our North Star, all we have to do is follow it. And I think it'll take care of it itself and sustain itself. It just depends on where we are on that language to labor continuum. If we see the value that these students have to offer, then we actualize the value that we see. That's my take on it. Thank you for inviting me back in to answer that question.
And thank you, Bavu, for that. I love that idea, and I'm sure all of us here with the board would love to be able to support that. So Bavu, you know how to find us. You can stalk us on Twitter, Facebook, IG, TikTok, whatever the kids are doing now. No, but seriously, I would love additional opportunities to engage with the students. I think also one of the things that keeps coming up for me as I heard you all talk about your time with SEC is how adults, we don't take the time to really respect people regardless of what their chronological age is. And so, 5 or however many years from now, having an equivalent SEC at the elementary level, at the middle school level. And there's a lot of wisdom from young children as well. And I would love to see those opportunities.
Thank you, Trustee Lugo. Trustee Ashley.
I just have one quick question. For those who may be watching this incredible presentation and be interested in being a part of this group as additional students, is there a way for people who are just learning about the Student Equity Council to become participants, or is the membership capped at this point, or is there a process, or where might people go to find out more of how they can be involved?
Go ahead, Zarka, and I can back you up.
Right now, we've invited all high schools in the district, and so if you're at a high school that you aren't sure that's a part of our program, then you can reach out to, I believe, the sponsors, and we can send out a list of the sponsors from each different schools that we have. In terms of middle school and in terms of middle school and elementary school, we haven't really gotten there yet. But I believe in the future we do intend to expand to middle school and elementary school as well.
Yeah, I would just add that on the district-wide level, there's a maximum of 4 students per high school. But on a campus level, those 4 high school students are then going to build coalitions on their campus that interact with campus leadership, campus administration, the same way that the Student Equity Council on the district level intends to regularly interact with the executive leadership team, as well as you, the school board. So that's what they were able to prototype this year. We've gradually released the responsibility and have lots of records that they built where they've assembled their notes and already have a really clear vision. So I don't think it would be a problem to connect any or all board members who are interested in pushing this forward with the students themselves. And there's no telling what we can do. Again, if we see that value, we can actualize it. We can uphold it. It can be done.
And so students who might be on a campus would be able to reach out potentially to some specific names, or do they just reach out to their campus administration in order to find out on their campus who to contact or connect with?
I see. Each campus has a sponsor. So a faculty member that serves as a sponsor. For example, at LASA, the principal is the sponsor. The principals were who were invited to nominate the sponsors. And Stacia in particular said, I'll be the sponsor. But each campus has a sponsor, so you can approach the principal for each campus in order to connect to the Student Equity Council. And then starting next year, there'll also be a regular monthly convening on a campus level as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Trustees, any other questions? If not, Dr. Lizalde?
I would like to take a moment just, of course, to thank this entire group. I had the pleasure of hearing them originally on May 10th. I was ready to hire all of them. And they, I think it's a perfect example of I had already started to think about how can I get more student voice in the decision making that I do as a superintendent. So I kind of had this all mapped out. I was just going to start this teen board. And I got to hear all of our outstanding students in this equity council. And so I've committed to them that this will actually become a district, not just where they're meeting and having this with their sponsors, but that in fact they will have an audience with me and our executive leadership team at least once every 6 weeks. And we want to make this we want a commitment that this is what we're going to do with them. I think one of our trustees used the word for them, and we know we need to do this with them rather than for them or to them. So we will be solidifying this plan, and Babu doesn't know that he's going to be tasked with continuing to lead this at the next level. Because I think their words really emphasize that we can just take what's already here and their training and ensure that we do turn this from more than just language to labor, as Babu said. And of course, Babu Blakes is very unassuming, but all of our team in the CPNI group, our kids are obviously super smart and super talented. And it takes great educators to uncover and discover their beautiful talents. And so to all of our sponsors, all of our groups, past and present, I want to thank them for being able to just bring these students to light so that we can create a true organization that is student-centered. And I really appreciate that they will help us move from more than just technical change, but to make this more transformative change. And I cannot thank this group enough, but we're going to be able to start meeting. They'll have our executive leadership team because we're making decisions all the time. And they really caused us to reflect, where is their direct voice in the decisions that we're making? Even though we're making them with the best of intentions, but if their voice is not represented, how do we really know whether we're connected with what our student needs are? So again, just a sincere thank you.
Dr. Ross, Babu, thank you. I just want to thank Zarka, Nelly, Felix, and Noah for their time tonight. You're welcome to stay for the entire board meeting, but I'm sure you have some homework to do. I think each of the trustees look forward to scheduling time to visit with your colleagues, with your students, and to hear their concerns and be with them and support what y'all are doing. So really look forward to it. So mil gracias.
I just wanted to say thank you to Trustee Henderson. Just a special shout out. Thank you so much for everything you do for us.
And for everyone who's took the time to ask questions and let us know that we are truly being heard, I'd like to thank everyone else. And for everyone else who didn't even ask questions but took the time to just listen to us, thank you.
And I'm going to end with one final thank you to Dr. Twyla Williams, who has been supporting this work all year. I just want to express appreciation and for raising a wonderful son like Noah Williams. Thank you, Nellie. Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Zarka. Appreciate all of you so deeply.
I just wanted to add something on real quick to what the superintendent was saying. That decisions are made for administrative reasons and not human or personal reasons. I thought that was really important. Oh, and that was all. I just felt like I didn't want to leave that out.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you all again very much for being here.
Thank you all. We hope you have a great night.
Thank you, guys.
I know. It's like... So now.